Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is a little bit something different. I'm going to be talking about a film and a specific topic related to the movie, but it's not going to be one of those things where I'm talking about the film in terms of a what if scenario. I'm not going to be talking about the film in terms of where it's ranked, whether it's the quality of the film according to other critics or a personal list or anything. This time around, I'm going to be discussing the topic of whether or not Finding Nemo is overrated. Now, before we go any further, I want to give a special shout out to John for requesting this video. In fact, this video is going to feature his opinions. He wanted me to share my thoughts on his opinions of Finding Nemo in particular. If there is another topic, film, or TV show that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal, my Patreon, or my Cash App. Links to all three are in the video description down below, and I will try to get your requests as soon as I possibly can. Now, John, he wrote a rather lengthy Word document about Finding Nemo and why he finds it to be overrated, why he doesn't like the film. So I didn't really want to focus on the reasons why he doesn't like it. I wanted to really retool the conversation and tailor it towards the concept of whether or not it's overrated, but also centered around a lot of his takes. Um, he has about 10 main takes here, and I'm going to give you the gist of them, and then I'm going to share my thoughts on them. And then by the end, I'm going to determine whether or not I agree with the concept or the idea that Finding Nemo is an overrated film. Now, number 10, point number 10 is that Dory, Crush, and the rest of the tank gang and the seagulls are annoying and obnoxious, especially Dory. Uh, John makes it clear that he doesn't mind Squirt, but he finds Crush to be irritating because of his surfer bro gimmick. And you know what? I can definitely see that. It definitely felt, in my opinion, pretty dated, even for 2003. I mean, he's acting like he's Bill and Ted or Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and those Spicoli in particular is a character who works in small doses. And honestly, I feel the same way about Crush. Like Crush, I didn't find him to be that annoying, but I can see where John is coming from, or where others are coming from when it comes to Crush being an annoying character because of his cliched surfer dude gimmick. Uh, I would be more annoyed with him if he was in the movie more than he was. He was really only in the movie for like I think maybe a few minutes, if even that. So he wasn't in it enough for me to really grow to dislike the character, let alone grow any sort of genuine affection or compassion for the character either. Dory, on the other hand, I could not stand. For one, I don't think Ellen DeGeneres is that funny. Period. I never really cared for her as a comedian or as an actress, and as a person, I like her even less. If you look at what went down on the set of her talk show, which was a notoriously toxic work environment. So, yeah, I don't really care for the character of Dory. I also find the fact that the character has short-term memory loss to not be necessarily clever, let alone endearing to me. I just find it to be an extension of how annoying Ellen DeGeneres's portrayal of his character is. I know some people might consider that to be ableist for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, I don't really think that you should not be able to criticize a character just because they have a disability. I think that is really unfair to them, unfair to people with disabilities, if you ask me. That's like people not being able to criticize portrayals of autism in movies because it's ableist, and I'd be like, no, I mean, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it, and I think the way that they did it wasn't necessarily bad or poorly done or offensive or by any means in terms of the way that the writing portrayed Dory and her short-term memory loss. I just found it to be annoying because the character is annoying and Ellen DeGeneres is annoying. I mean, the whale no the scene where she's trying to speak whale is cringe. I 100% agree with you, John, on that. And I just didn't find the character to be that endearing, that likable, or really that great. Honestly, Dory is one of my least favorite Pixar Disney characters that I can think of, to be perfectly honest. Um, And the seagulls, yeah, the seagulls suck too. The ones that just go mine, 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 mine. That's just a really one note gag. Thankfully, they're only in the film for I think like maybe a combined total of like a minute or two, but it definitely is a minute or two that can get on your nerves and be very grating. So yeah, I mean I agree with a good chunk of what John has to say here. The Tank Gang, they're just there. I like Gil, but the rest are just okay. They're not particularly that funny, but they're also not particularly that unlikable or obnoxious to me. They're just there. Um, the ninth point that he's making is vegetarian sharks are foolish and are not funny. It is kind of a silly idea, but I honestly got a kick out of it. I thought it was actually pretty clever. They're not vegetarians. They're just sharks who are trying to be nice to fish and not always consider them to be food. But what makes it funny is that one of the sharks completely fails already and has already eaten his fish friend, and then it's a setup for a chase of sorts where Marlin and Dory are being chased by Bruce after he gets a whiff of some blood from Dory after she got hit in the face with the snorkel mask, and it sets up a really genuinely thrilling, exciting action sequence. Really great chase scene. And then some really funny bits where Bruce's shark friends keep interjecting in between Bruce trying to eat the fish for dinner, and they keep interjecting and being like, "Oh, he's really okay. He's really a nice guy. He just didn't really get to know his father." Yeah, yeah. Like I genuinely find that to be witty, but that's me. And then it sets up one of the funniest moments in the movie after the mines explode, and then you have these two birds that are up floating on top of the ocean, and then all these mines explode, and all that happens is a little bubble that pops up next to one of these birds, and then the other bird sitting next to the other bird thinks that the other bird farted, and so then the bird is just like, really, and then just flies off. I don't really like fart jokes that much, but that one kills me for some reason. I think it's because of just how unexpected it is and just how sudden and random and just the reaction of the other bird. I think the deadpan of the bird going really and then flying off like man, that is hilarious. And that's all set up for that joke. Like you're not going to be able to have that joke if you don't have Bruce going after the fish and then the torpedo getting flown out of his mouth and then it hitting the mines and then them exploding. So I like that. I like the sharks. I think it actually is clever because it's different. You don't see a lot of times where sharks are represented in media in general where they are presented in that kind of way. So I felt that that was definitely refreshing, but that's just me personally. His eighth point is that the animation looks dated and doesn't hold up. I definitely do not agree with that. He's talking about how these other Disney films, they look better, and this doesn't look very good on DVD or VHS. I am also looking at it from the perspective of seeing the film on a OLED with a 4K disc, and that is a little bit different. I will admit that, but I also remember seeing it on Blu-ray, and I thought it looked pretty good. I think when it comes to Disney Pixar films from around this same time period, this is one where I think the animation holds up better than some of the others. I think there are some moments where the animation doesn't look that great. I will admit there are some points where the water doesn't look quite right. But for the most part, I think the animation holds up really well, especially a lot of the scenes that take place under the water in the ocean or in the fish tank. It's a lot of the wide shots that really don't hold up that well. Wide shots from the surface or stuff like that. But for the most part, I think animation looks quite good. I think it does hold up, but that's just me personally. And I think that's a big part of why I still like the film, despite it, me just being so in the middle on so many aspects of the movie in general. Because it's a definitely a nice eye-catching film. It's got some genuine bits of eye candy, for sure. I don't agree that it looks dull and incredibly fuzzy. Um, I don't agree with that at all. But that's just me. Point number 7 is the movie isn't dark enough. He talks about how, Coral's death and the death of the children isn't dark and edgy. Well, I don't think it's really intended to be dark and edgy, but it is something for a kids movie. It is admittedly a little darker than normal. Um, the whole stuff with the anglerfish, I would consider that to be pretty dark. The connotation that the girl, the Darla, has killed fish before. That is pretty dark too. There's also some other bits here and there that do allude to some kind of darker elements. There's not a ton of adult comedy in it though, or adult jokes. So it doesn't really work on that front in comparison to some of the other Pixar films or some of the other Disney movies. And I know he's talking about there isn't even any blood. Well, there actually is blood in it. That's the reason why Bruce winds up going after Marlin and Dory to begin with, is because Dory gets hurt, and then she winds up bleeding, and then that's what leads the shark to chase after them. So there is a little bit of blood, not a lot, but there is a little. And then you just have some of the dentist humor is pretty dark in it, to be honest. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's like the darkest Disney movie, but I think, it does have a little bit of an edge. Not a very sharp one, but I don't think it's completely dull. Uh, the 6th point he's making here is movie has no main antagonist and villain. It doesn't work without one by not having conflict. I am definitely somebody who prefers a film to have a antagonist most of the time. But Finding Nemo is a film and a story where I don't think it was actually really necessary, because the antagonist was Marlin, in a lot of ways himself. It was Marlin himself. That's really what the antagonist was. It was Marlin and his insecurities and his fears, and how all of that was holding him back, and how throughout this journey and this adventure of him trying to find Nemo, he found himself, and in the process, he found a better version of himself. So I think that is really what the antagonist is in Finding Nemo, and I think it actually works pretty well. I think it's rather effective. I think the conflict is fine too. The conflict is just finding Nemo. That's really what the conflict is, and it's an effective conflict. It's a father trying to find his son. So I respectfully disagree. I don't really think it needed a clear villain, clear antagonist. I don't really think that it's a story that doesn't have a strong conflict either. I think the conflict is still rather effective and still efficient, despite it being very simple. Point number five, the movie has no a clear main protagonist. Usually, this is another point that can bug me, but it doesn't bother me that much in Finding Nemo because it is more of an ensemble film. It's more of a film that deals with an ensemble cast. Ensemble films don't necessarily have to have one main uh, protagonist, they can have multiple protagonists. And that's the case here with Finding Nemo. You have Marlin, you have Dory, you have Nemo, and you have the fish tank gang. So I don't even really think that it's entirely necessary to focus on just one character more than the other. But that's just me, because I think it still works as an ensemble. That being said, because of it being an ensemble, there really isn't a character that stands out more than the other, unless you're talking about Dory just being annoying and insufferable. But other than that, like, yeah, Nemo is just kind of a cliched kid character who's supposed to be like an avatar for the young kids in the audience. Marlin's the worried, paranoid, scared father who doesn't want to let go. Dory's a comic relief. The fish tank crew, a good chunk of them are also comic relief, other than Gil, who's like the leader of the group and becomes sort of a mentor to Nemo. But yeah, it's not really a film though where I'm a clear protagonist, a clear main character really rises above the rest. So, if that is something that you feel is integral to the film or integral to the success of the movie or any film, I could definitely see why this film would stick out and not work for that reason. But they were still, for the most part, tolerable enough as a whole that I didn't really feel you needed one to be more prominent than the other. But that's just me personally. Uh, Point number four is that Coral's death is rushed and it's not effective. I think it's an effective scene, but I do agree that it is it is rushed. It really is. Like the movie just opens up with Marlon and Coral, and they are in love with one another. The Coral just had babies, just had a bunch of eggs, and she's excited about seeing them being born, and then they wind up getting in a pretty terrifying situation at the start of the film that ultimately leads to Coral getting killed, and there being only one egg left, which winds up being Nemo. So I think, yeah, it is rushed, but I still think it works. But at the same time, I would have liked to have the film to have had a little bit more time with Coral, to get to know her more and her connection with Marlin. But at the same time, though, it might have been a pacing thing. The movie is like an hour and 30 something minutes without the end credits. So I think it might have been more of a thing done for pace than necessarily a thing done for the overall effectiveness of the script of the story. For instance, Tarzan, a film that I really love that Disney did, you don't really get to know that much about Tarzan's parents. It's a similar thing. It opens up, you know that they love Tarzan, and that's really about it. and then they wind up becoming a food for one of the wild animals in the jungle. And Tarzan is left to fend for himself as a baby, and that's when he winds up being adopted by one of the gorillas. So, I mean, Tarzan is an example of a Disney film where it has an opening like that, where you don't really get to know that much about the parents before they wind up kicking the bucket or wind up getting killed. So, Finding Nemo does the same thing, and I think it still works. It's still an effective bit of drama, and it definitely does explain why Marlin is so protective of Nemo, and why Nemo wants to break free from him because he's just been constantly coddled and under his father's fin for his entire life because his father is terrified of anything happening to Nemo because he's all that he has left when it comes to his connection with his wife, with Coral. So I still felt something when she died, even though I didn't get to know her that much, because I did genuinely feel the love that she had for her unborn kids. I definitely did get the sense that she and Marlon were really close and they loved one another just by the dialogue, just by the performances, by the voice actors. So I still think it was an effective bit of drama, but it was rushed, no doubt about it. But I still think at the end of the day, I think the drama still worked. And sometimes when things are rushed like that, the drama doesn't work at all. And I didn't really feel that that was the case with Finding Nemo. Point number three, Marlin is an idiot. I don't really agree that he's an idiot. He's shown that he's got some pretty good smarts. I mean, the way that he wound up figuring things out in terms of getting away from the jellyfish, that's pretty smart. There are some other ways that he uses intelligence rather well. Uh, Marlin is stubborn. That's what Marlin is. He's stubborn, and he's also uh, uh, fearful. He's stubborn and fearful. That's really what Marlin is for most of the movie. Um, and throughout his whole journey of trying to find Nemo and get him back, that's when he learns to not be so afraid of his surroundings, have more confidence in himself, and also he learns to not be so stubborn and be willing to budge and be willing to allow his child to have some freedom and to swim on his own. And I see where John is coming from when he's saying that Marlon is dumb for forgiving his son after what he went through to save his son. How he doesn't really say anything. He doesn't really get on Nemo's nerves. Doesn't really go after him after Nemo's returned to him or after the whole ordeal that he and Dory went through. Uh, he's constantly making a fool of himself. I mean, I don't know if he's constantly making a fool of himself, but definitely there are some moments where he's doing that, but that's just an extension of Marlin and his issues as a character. These are the moments that set up his growth as a character. That's really what they are. The moments where he looks like a fool, when he can't say a joke correctly, or he's doing things that make him look bad, that make him look clingy. And he's also talking about, why should I feel bad for Marlin? You're not entitled to it. You have to earn it. I'm like, I'm sorry. I still feel bad for the guy. I mean, he lost the love of his life and most of his children. The only child that's left is Nemo, and that's it. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I think that's more than enough to feel sympathy for this guy. But that's just me personally. Um, the the whole thing with you mentioned something about the pelican, where the pelican tells him he can't go in there. Marlin, like the dunce he is, doesn't listen to him, and the rescue attempt fails. He thinks Nemo is dead with no evidence without bothering to investigate. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't blame Marlin for thinking the way that he did. Also, how is he going to investigate in that instance? Especially after what was going on in that doctor's in that dentist office. And yeah, the Pelican tells him that he can't go in there, but the rescue attempt actually does wind up succeeding, though, eventually. If he doesn't go in there, then the chaos doesn't ensue later on that ultimately allows Nemo to escape. So I don't necessarily agree that him not going in there is necessarily an instance of the plan potentially working. I don't think the plan was going to work if Marlin didn't disobey the Pelican. If Marlin didn't continue to go on this newfound character arc where he broke outside his comfort zone and he just reacted on impulse, or he just trusted himself more, which is what happened earlier when he was inside of the whale and Dory is trying to tell him that we need to get to the back of the throat. And he's like, no, it's going to eat us. And then I don't trust you. And then eventually Dory gets through to him because he's saying, like, well, how do you know? How do you know that he's not going to eat us? And then Dory's like, I don't. And that's a valuable life lesson. You do not know always what the outcome of life is going to be. You just have to go with it sometimes. You have to go with the flow, and that's ultimately what Marlin learns, and that's what ultimately allows Nemo in the end to escape from his prison, in the dentist office. Then point number 2 ties into Nemo, where John mentions that he feels that Nemo is a whiny, unlikable, selfish brat. He thinks that he's closer to antagonist than anything else. He doesn't feel sorry for him at all. And he talks about how Nemo's responsible for a lot of the problems in the film, faces no consequences for it. And this is where I would definitely agree with John. Like, Nemo is a character that is very one note. Like I said, he's essentially just an avatar for very young kids in the audience. And I think that's what leads this character to be written as kind of wish fulfillment for kids, which has its positives and it also has its drawbacks. And I think one of the drawbacks is that, yeah, he doesn't really seem like a character that really grows that much, despite him learning to give back to his father more in terms of just loving him more and respecting him more, which is what he does by the end of the movie. He does seem to actually go through somewhat of an arc, and he also has similar problems when it comes to not trusting himself and his abilities that he winds up getting over throughout the course of the film as well. But I think the scene when Nemo makes sure to wait when he goes back to school after he's returned home, and he takes the time to tell the manta ray to wait and the rest of the class to wait, so then he can go essentially give his father a hug and tell him that he loves him. So I think Nemo is not completely unlikable for that moment alone for me personally. And I just never really found Nemo to be unlikable, period. I just found Nemo to be a kid who's got a lot of issues that kids deal with and traits that kids have that can be annoying, but not in a way that was really that more irritating than normal for me. It was like the normal level of irritation that a kid can provide. So I was just really not that upset by Nemo and the way that he was written or his portrayal in this. I was just more uh in the middle on Nemo. I just felt he was a tolerable character. I didn't find him to be intolerable like John or others do. And then he has one more point. The message is a terrible message for both parents and kids. He thinks the message is pretty much screw you, parents. I'm right. Even though I was wrong for disobeying you, I still get rewarded from my parents. Nemo doesn't get grounded or scolded by his father. And I see where John is coming from. I see where other people are coming from when it comes to the conflicting messages of this movie. Because that is something that I don't personally care for either when it comes to the film. And it's a reason why it's just kind of a okay time waster for me because of the visuals and for some of the other characters and some of the moments in the movie because of that. Because it does feel like a film where the message is just kind of muddled and murky. Okay, it's about believing in yourself. Okay, all right, that's rather generic and vague, but okay. It's about learning to let go. All right. That's a lesson that is very valuable. But Nemo really doesn't suffer any consequences for what he did other than almost dying throughout the whole ordeal, which I guess maybe you could argue that is a consequence. But in terms of consequences or punishments directly from his father, not much. But maybe the point is that Marlin was too much of a stickler, too much of somebody who was willing to punish Nemo for just being curious and wanting to learn on his own and that wasn't very well established because it's not like he was set up as a parent who had an iron fist prior to Nemo getting captured. So I think, I mean, other than him showing up and, demanding him to get back there and not touch the boat, other than that, like, there's not really a lot of things or traits from Marlin that would make you think that he's some iron fist parent. Um, who over disciplines their child. It doesn't really come across that way. So that wasn't really that well executed or well done when it comes to the writing. So yeah, I would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit, maybe not an outright punishment, but maybe just a discussion between Nemo and Marlin, where Marlin took Nemo aside and said, "Hey, I'm really proud of you for what you did, and I would not be able to have gone on this adventure and this journey and become a better version of myself uh without you. But you uh you disobeyed me and you put yourself at harm's way and I'm all for you learning how to swim and do your own thing, but you're still a kid. And when the time comes and you're old enough, then you can go out on these adventures and do all these things without supervision, and that's okay because that is something that you are allowed to do at that point in your life. But that's not now. Now is the time to learn. Now is the time to listen to your parents. Listen to your teacher. This you can play with your friends, but you got to have boundaries because it's dangerous. I'm not saying you need to be afraid of the ocean and afraid of everything that's out there, but you have to be aware of the dangers because it is genuinely dangerous out there. And you're not going to make it out on your own most of the time. You might have done it this time, but that doesn't mean that you're going to do it again. You got to learn how to take measured risks and also have fun because that's what being a kid is about. So, like something along those lines, I think that would have been a lot more effective than not saying anything and, yeah, basically just letting Nemo get away with everything that he did because, oh, I have my kid back and that's all that matters type of thing. So discipline is not needed, a life lesson is not necessary because he went through this ordeal, so that's more than enough. I don't really think it is actually. I think for a kid that young, you really need to give them some extra perspective that they're not going to have otherwise just by going through uh, a traumatic experience. Um, so yeah, I mean, it is definitely something that is conflicting, and like I said, it's murky. The message is murky, and that is a problem when it comes to the film. I can't really say the same for a lot of other Disney movies. The messages aren't nearly as murky as the message is in Finding Nemo. But all of this combined, all of these points put into one box, does that equate to Finding Nemo being overrated to me? And honestly, not really. But at the same time, I do feel that it's not like a 5-star movie by any means. Like, I don't think it's a 10 out of 10 film. Uh, I do think it's still a good movie and it's an effective film for what it is, but I think it could be better. But I do agree that there are a fair amount of things about it that do make it into something that I don't entirely enjoy on the same level as everything else, but I don't know if I would say that that means that I would consider it to be overrated. Um, maybe uh maybe I would say that it's a film that isn't on par with Toy Story or some of the other uh, um, more well received, highly praised Disney films or Pixar movies like The Incredibles. Like, I don't think it's on that level. But I do think that it's still better than average. And I think it's better than a lot of things that Disney has put out as of late. Although the bar is pretty low, looking at that, so it's not really saying much. But yeah, I mean, no, I don't think that it means that it's overrated. I just mean that it just means that it does have a fair amount of flaws that sometimes can be overlooked. And I think that it's important to acknowledge that Finding Nemo is a film where you actually can find quite a few flaws in it. But anyway, that is my thoughts on whether or not Finding Nemo is overrated. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. See ya.